All right, everyone. My next guest has been entertaining us for decades. You loved him in Logan's Run, Trapper John MD, Four Ladies Only, Au Pair 1, 2, and 3. Welcome to the show. Wait, Master Surfer, President Jonathan Hayes, Gregory Harrison. There we go. I tried to too much. I got too much in there.
You tried to squeeze it all in there.
I tried to squeeze it all in. There's so much I didn't even squeeze in. Sometimes, like when I'm digging through, and I get excited when I find things that relate to other people I've talked to. So I interviewed Jeffrey Sherman, and I know he wrote Au Pair 1, 2, and 3. So when I saw it on your thing, I'm like, oh, I know that movie.
Jeffrey's a great guy, and of course, the family connection in show business is unbelievable with his father and uncle and everybody being two of the most famous composer songwriters in Hollywood history, at least, and including theater, Broadway. But Jeff and I go a long way back now. Yeah, he wrote all three of those Au Pair movies.
Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah, the Sherman brothers were incredible. The connection, I was talking to his wife. I was interviewing Wendy Liebman.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, yeah, my father-in-law. And she starts to say, and I go, wait, from that Saving Mr. Banks movie?
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah. I'm like, wait a minute. Then I became obsessed. And there's a whole documentary that Jeff did on. And so, yeah. So when I saw that was, I know he wrote them. Was he around during those or he
wasn't really, because we shot those three movies. The first one we thought was, okay, it's like a TV movie. It's sort of The Sound of Music without the music. The plot was The Sound of Music plot. My nanny and I fall in love. We've got several kids and we're traveling around Europe and I'm very rich. And so we shot the whole thing in Hungary, in Budapest. Jeffrey, unfortunately for him, couldn't, he wrote it, but he didn't come and spend the 5 weeks with us shooting it, which was a shame because it was a pretty amazing place to be making a movie. And that was in about 1999 or 2000. But then we shot the next one in Prague. We shot the last one in Puerto Rico. And I think he came for those. He visited for those.
All beautiful places.
Yeah. It was pretty amazing. A nice trilogy. I think the movies got progressively worse as we kept making them. But we had a big fan base out there. So we kept making them for the fans. They'd watch. And we had fun making them.
We should get Jeffrey Sherman in a Facebook DM after this, and we'll get him to write Au Pair 4.
Sure. Let's do it.
It's time. The other kind of random thing I saw on your IMDb was that you were in the original Wonder Woman pilot.
I was unbilled in the original Wonder Woman pilot. I played a doctor, and I had met Linda a few years earlier. We had gotten to know each other, and I don't know how I ended up in that, but it was the pilot episode. Of course, it went on to years and years on the air. I think that was about a year before I did Logan's Run. So it was a year before I had my first series. Actually, I remember now, it was exactly a year prior to that, because we had the same craft service guide to Logan's Run. And we were used to talk about that. Yeah, I was unbilled. I think I had just done an episode of MASH, and then I did the Wonder Woman pilot, and then I went off and did a play for a while, and then I finally got a series. I did 7 screen tests for 7 different series in 1976, 77. I got the 7th one. I came in second on the first 6. I knew I was due, but it also can be really discouraging when you keep not getting it. But I was in the room with the finals. I was always one of the finalists for these different series. 8 is Enough and a few other things.
Oh, who were you going to be in 8 is Enough? Who were your number 2?
Grant Goodeve's part.
Okay. Any other ones of note that shows that kind of went on? I mean, it all turned out well for you. So,
it all turned out well. No, it all turned out great. It was the way it should have happened. And I might not have been ready for it a year earlier, but it was just a really fun time. That was back when you only had 3 networks and you had real screen tests. I mean, now you put something on tape and you show it to the network and they approve it or disapprove it as a final screen test, And so you're shooting it at home on video. But back then, I mean, they'd reserve a sound stage. You'd go in and be in costume, in makeup, with set, with full crew of 80 people around running all the different departments and shoot all day long. And then they would look at it and decide, yeah, that's the guy. It was a whole different time, completely different time.
Why do you think the taping was a result of COVID, which we're a bit past at the moment, right? Or
Well,
had
I
it?
think it taping really took over during COVID, but they had been doing it before that a little bit. I mean, for the last 3 or 4 years before COVID, there were certain roles that I got a couple of roles prior to COVID. I was out of town. I was shooting something somewhere else, and I'd put something on tape on my iPhone and send it in, and I'd get the part. It wasn't unheard of, but it just wasn't nearly as pervasive as it is now. Now it's almost all they do. You almost never go into an office anymore to do an audition.
It sounds like that would hurt not just chances. I mean, but like their ability to go, oh, hey, Gregory, let's do it one more time. Do this, or like give you other
Yeah,
things
see,
to
I really
bounce
like
off of.
getting direct. I like getting direction. I like getting a sense, but also it's hard. I mean, there are certain advantages. You can do 50 takes at home if you have somebody good reading with you and you're properly lit and all that. You can do 50 takes and pick the best one. When you go in to a room with the producer, writer, co-stars, whoever, the execs, you get one shot at it. You do a lot of prep and you walk in, you do it. But I don't know. There's something about that I like better. And I think you can sense chemistry between actors a whole lot better in the room than you can on a black and white little screen or a black and white camera or whatever. I mean, I just think that it's kind of an interesting thing. When I used to get my series, you'd go into network. You call it going to network after you do the first 2 or 3 auditions, and you get called back and called back again, and it keeps winnowing down the size of the people that are in contention for the role. And then finally you go into the network, and they're all seated. They used to be all seated in a room like a little tiny theater, and you'd perform it. And I remember thinking then, I'm fortunate. I was good at theater. I'm comfortable doing theater, but there are certain actors that don't do theater at all, but they're very good on film. But they're in close-ups all the time, If you're auditioning or your final audition for the series, starring in a series, and you've already signed your 7-year commitment and everything else, because they won't even let you audition in the final stages if you haven't already committed to the idea. They're all sitting 10, 15 feet away from you, and they're seeing a theatrical performance, which has nothing to do with what you're potentially going to be doing for the next 7 years. Because television's always tight, it's a master for 3 seconds and then you're into the close-up. So I don't know. It's a mixture of the two. Now, just to cut to the chase, now it's almost entirely done at home auditions on video. And, people are getting jobs and people are doing okay. So I guess it's just an adaptation. It's not something, it doesn't make anything harder. It's just something we have to adapt to. And I've been around I'm 75 years old. I've been around for a long time, and I've had to make a lot of adaptations. So this is just one more.
There's always an adaptation. There's always something new you got to deal with.
Either that or you go extinct. You got to evolve or go extinct. I don't want to be extinct.
When you're doing these auditions, and you walk in and you see the guy who ended up being Grant from Eight Is Enough or whatever, or you see the same people over and over again. Does that kind of play in your head? So is that like something now that's removed from the process? Like there's nothing to psych yourself out. Like you walk in and you're like, oh my God, this guy's here, like, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Like,
sure. There's a lot of mind games that you play on yourself and that others play on you. And some actors purposely try to throw other actors off that they may see in the office waiting to go in and do their turn. I never felt like acting was a competition. And I think it helped. I never felt that way because it helped me do my best, to not be thinking of it as a competition, just be thinking of it as this is a day's work. I'm playing this character today for 3 minutes in that office, and I can play characters. I've trained years of my life to do this, and I'm good at it. I'm going to walk in and I get, oh, whoopee, I get to act today. Instead of, oh God, he's here. And he got that part out from under me last time. And I know the network likes him better than they like me. And I mean, you can just totally, ruin your psyche if you aren't careful. I just sort of put the blinders on and focus on what I'm doing, and focus on having fun with the process and not thinking about the result. And that's really something that I do in my life. I mean, my whole career, I have enjoyed the process without worrying about results. I always figured, even as a new actor, I'd gotten to Hollywood and I was 20 and just got out of the army, but I knew that if I was good, I would get all the other things, instead of going to Hollywood to get famous or to get rich or to get laid or to get whatever it is, which so many people did and still come to Hollywood to try and accomplish. I just said, I want to get good. I'm going to go and I'm going to study. Fortunately, I get the GI Bill paid for acting classes. And I just thought, just get good. If you get good, you'll work. If you work, you'll make some money. Some people will recognize you. It'll all come together. But most importantly, you'll enjoy the process, just the day-to-day of learning how to act and getting better at it and overcoming obstacles, both internal and external, and it'll all work out. And it's been 50 years, 54 years that I've been in Hollywood or been in the business around Hollywood. And I'm still working, knock wood, still working. And I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do. I'm a working actor. I've never done anything else for a living since I started working as an actor. That's my dream. So I'm living my dream.
That's amazing. So you took acting classes after coming out of the Army. Thank you for your service. And the dream, when did that dream start? Like, how did that dream start?
Oh, okay. Well, that dream started when I grew up on Catalina Island, and a little town, about 1,200 people back then. We had one school, Avalon High School, was actually elementary, junior, and high school in one big building complex. And I had 31 kids in my class the year I graduated as a senior, and 28 of those kids I went to kindergarten with. So it was tiny. It was tiny. We knew everybody. There were 16 guys in my class. I realized when I was very small, my father would play Jesus in the Easter sunrise service every year, which we'd have up on this mountain, as the sun was coming up on Easter Sunday. And he would play Jesus. And he got me in there as like a 4-year-old I held the bowl that Pontius Pilate washed his hands in, right? And I was like, yeah, I'm acting with my dad, My dad was a boat captain. He ran the glass bottom boats. And they shot a lot of movies in Catalina. So I started doing like variety shows in high school, in junior high school. And then I started doing plays when I hit junior high and high school. And there were 16 guys in my class, and I was really the only one that wanted to be the lead in the school plays. So I didn't have any competition. And so I became the lead in all the school plays. And I knew I had a flair for it. I knew it was fun to do. But when I was 15, they shot a movie on my dad's boat, which was the Glass Bottom Boat. And the movie was called The Glass Bottom Boat, starring Doris Day and Rod Taylor, and Arthur Godfrey played my father. My father did the stunt driving of the boat, pretending to be Arthur Godfrey. And I watched Doris Day and Rod Taylor playing a scene on the boat. I'm only about 10 feet away. It's my dad's boat. They can't get rid of me. My whole life, I'd been trying to stick around these sets that I'd seen them shooting Route 66s and all these different things around the island, and they'd never let close. So I never really got to see the process. But that day on that boat, I was 15 years old, and I watched Doris and Rod playing a scene, and Doris blew a line and dropped a big F-bomb and said, let's do it again. God damn. At first, I was shocked that Doris Day could drop an F-bomb. Oh, my God. She was America's perpetual virgin. And then I watched them do it again and do it again. And then he'd screw up a line, and then they'd do it one more take. And after just an afternoon of watching that, I knew, I really knew I was going to be doing this for the rest of my life. Because I could make mistakes and do it again. I knew I was capable of that. I could screw it up until I got it right. That wasn't some magic thing that I'd always assumed actors were these otherworldly kind of people, that could create magic on a screen and make you feel things. It's just a little puzzle making, you take the little piece of the puzzle, you shoot it here and then shoot another one there, and you put them all together and you've got the full movie, and people start feeling stuff that are watching if you've done it right. I just went, oh, okay, I can do that. And I knew that day that I would devote myself to that for the rest of my life. It looked like a lot of fun. And I'd been wishing that I could be involved in the magic of movies for a long, long time. I just didn't understand the process. I knew when I got out of the Army that I was going to go to Hollywood. And if I survived Vietnam and that wartime, I knew that I would come to Hollywood afterwards. I got drafted right out of high school. And then I enlisted for an extra year so I wouldn't shoot anybody. To become a medic, I gave him an extra year so that I could choose not to kill anyone. But when I got out after 3 years, I was not quite 21. went straight to Hollywood on the GI Bill. And that was
That's
that.
amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
It's funny you say that about seeing it. I did stand-up comedy for like 20 years. And like one of the very, very early on, I watched a comedian. He's kind of doing the thing and he drinks beer out of a straw and he goes, "Oh my God, I just drank." And he said the funniest thing ever. I go, "I can't believe it. That was so crazy that that happened." And he was so funny. And then the next show, he's like, "Oh, I can't believe I just drank." Like you really, I'm like, "Oh, that's what it is. It's just repetition. It's doing the same thing." And it's like once like the curtain was like removed, and I same kind of like moment of clarity where you're like, "Oh, I get it. This is
Yeah.
how you do it." That's awesome though.
Yeah, but it's that idea of repetition that never looks like repetition. And
Right.
that's where the skill comes in. Is how it's sort of like watching. I remember I used to, when I was growing up, I'd watch the Olympics and you'd see somebody running high hurdles and you go, "Oh, that looks pretty easy," and then and then they're standing on the podium getting the gold medal. And oh, that doesn't look that hard. But because they've spent 20 years learning how to make it not look hard, and that's the same with good acting. You make it look effortless if you're good at it. And you have to repeat. And sometimes it's not just repeating the same joke effectively each time. Sometimes you got to reach inside and expose the deepest parts of your soul, which is not easy and not fun and is scary and hurts. But you got to be willing to do that and do it over and over and over and do it honestly and effectively and truly and without reservation until it all gets right on camera, right? So there's so much skill involved in that repetition. And so when people say, "Oh," people often say, "Well, you get paid well, you're not doing anything. You're just being you." It's like I go, "Thank you. Thank you." That's a compliment because you don't have a freaking clue how hard it is to get to that point.
I respect it. When you say Catalina, I mean at some point the people go, "Catalina wine mixer." That's gotta come
Oh,
up.
yeah. Yeah. Well, Sea Hunt, before you were even born, Sea Hunt with Lloyd Bridges shot over in Catalina a lot and in the ocean around Catalina. And of course, that's where I was most of the time. And my father's living, being on captain of the glass bottom boat, was about what's going on in the ocean around Catalina. So there were lots of things being filmed there. The first movie I ever saw being filmed, I was 4 years old, it starred Audie Murphy, and it was called The Battle of Bloody Beach. And they'd hire my dad because he had one of the few boats in town to take the crew down to some cove and drop it off and then go get him in the evening after he had done his 10 trips a day on the glass bottom boat with tourists. I got to see sets and I got to meet some actors, but I just never got to watch the process until they actually filmed it on my dad's boat. That was the turning point. And I was supposed to be the next captain of the glass bottom boat. My grandfather had started him. My father ran him for 50 years. I was supposed to do it, assumed that I would do it, but I just took a hard right turn that day, never to look back.
And what the kind of irony that a movie called The Glass Bottom Boat took you away from being a glass bottom boat captain.
Yeah.
Love it. Was it like beautiful, like just growing up on an island? Was that
so beautiful? It was so idyllic, carefree, and unencumbered with all of the worries and concerns that we have as parents today or as children today. I mean, my father taught me how to avoid rattlesnakes, which were prevalent on the island, and how not to drown. As a 2 and 3-year-old, I knew how to avoid those two things, those two fates. And that was it. I'd be 4 or 5 years old. My mom would say, "Okay, at 8 a.m., she'd say, 'Go out and play, come home before dark.'" And that was that. And I was out roaming that island and swimming in the ocean and diving for coins from the tourists that would come over, that would throw them off the boat, as they were coming into the harbor. And I mean, it was just idyllic. It was, I feel bad for I felt bad for my kids. My kids are all adults now, but I feel bad for kids today. There's just so little freedom to roam outside like we had when I was young. I think everybody in the world had a lot more freedom to roam. Not that there weren't tragic things going on elsewhere, but I think for the most part, the last 20 or 30 years have changed the world significantly. And of course, technology has changed it too. But overcrowding has changed it, there's just a lot of changes, but I had an idyllic childhood, and I'm so grateful for it.
There was something about growing up without phones and the ability to be in constant communication that I think helped foster that type of trust. Like, I remember
Mm-hmm.
when we had a baby and someone's like, got us a video monitor. I'm like, don't get the video monitor. The second you have a video monitor, that's your obsession. You can't not be always looking. Oh, with something, nothing's
Yeah,
going to happen. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing with phones. Like, I can track where you are. I can find, I can see where everyone is. It's just like, yeah, I remember you just go out and you came back for dinner. So
that's
I
right.
don't remember. We grew up not even eating lunch. I'm just
That's right. Get a lot of meals. I'd
What
be
was
out
lunch?
hiking mountains around Avalon. Yeah, it's a different world now. It's just a different world. I live north of LA, and I'm real close to the beach, and I love that. I have to be around the ocean. Having grown up around it, I just don't feel complete without being able to hear it, smell it, and get in it often. But still, it's just a very different world. And there are certain advantages to the world today, but I think we've lost a few of the advantages I had as a kid.
Here's to the childhoods that are gone. And
Yeah,
the way it used to be.
the
But
world's always changing and
yeah,
shifting, and again, like we were saying in the very beginning, adapt or die, make the best of it, live in the moment, joy, be grateful. That's kind of my motto.
that's a good motto. It's a good motto. So what was your first big break? When did you know, oh, okay, I'm on my way.
Interesting. When I was in this acting school, early 70s, it's like, after the first 6 months or so in the acting school, there's like a wireless, like a little inter-school wireless system. And everybody kind of knows now that they've seen a lot of people do their work and do scenes and prepared scenes and stuff and get critiqued. And, every week you're meeting and you're doing these scenes and you're showing, each other you're experiencing other people's talents and they're experiencing yours. After a certain point, the word went around that, oh, there's, a few people in this school that are for sure going to make it. They're going to have careers. You just know they are. And I became one of those. It was like the word came back to me, and that's kind of when I went, okay, that's validation. Everybody seems to think that I may not be ready yet, but I'm going to get there. Everybody's very positive and complimentary about my work, even though I was far from being ready to work. But I always felt like I had some kind of a special imagination or something that allowed me to devote myself, to commit. A kind of an emotional courage that allowed me to commit. And I don't think I did anything to earn it. I just got lucky and had that. Then I applied myself in schools. I mean, I really worked my butt off for years. I didn't get an agent for 5 years. I was in Hollywood for 5 years before I got an agent, before I started auditioning, because I was just learning my craft. And happily, I didn't want to go out and pursue a career until I knew I was ready to not just be a mediocre actor, but to go out and make some waves.
I do. Jim, the world's greatest.
Yeah,
Oh,
that one happened. That was my first film. They came to the acting school I was in, and like I was saying, I had become a member of this list of a few actors in the school who everybody was sure was going to go somewhere. And these two producers, writers, director, producers, that were about 18 years old, who had won a Super 8 movie contest a year or two earlier, and their father was well off, gave them $100,000. They were at UCLA, and they gave them $100,000 to make a feature for 100 grand. 100 grand wasn't much even in 1975, but he gave them 100 grand. So they decided they wrote this thing out called Jim the World's Greatest, and they decided that the only way they could shoot it for $100,000 was to shoot it on weekends and rent the equipment on a Friday night from an equipment house in Hollywood. I mean, cameras, dollies, lights, everything required, and take that equipment back on Monday morning. And because no one had ever done this before, the rental house would say, well, you pay for one day. So you get from Friday night till Monday morning and you pay for one day. But they came to the school and they watched me do some scene. I didn't even know they were there. Afterwards, they come up and they go, would you star in our movie for us? I'm like, I got $50 in the bank and an old Opel Kadett that barely traveled anymore. But I said, yeah, sure, I'll star in a movie. Yeah. What is it? And they said, well, we're going to shoot it for a year on weekends. We're going to rent the equipment on Friday night, take it back Monday morning, and then you'll sleep, and we'll shoot from Friday night till Monday morning. No rest, no breaks. And then you can fall over all week long, as we will, and we'll start to rev up again on about Thursday. And then by Friday, we'll rent the equipment and start over. And for a year, I did that. And they were shooting and living in Long Beach. So I'd drive down there from Hollywood every Friday and shoot for 3 days straight without sleep. After a year, they cut the film together in a rough cut, showed it to a guy named Charles Champlin, who was this wonderful writer, entertainment writer, and had in the LA Times calendar section, he'd do a front page article every Sunday. He wrote an article about this rough cut of this film he'd seen, and he raved about me, and he raved about the movie. And he said, it's very raw, but it's, incredibly done and great performances and nice story. And then he told his friend, Sid Sheinberg, who was the head of production at Universal Studios, about it. And Sid watched the rough cut, which is a really rough cut. I mean, we made it for no money. But he said, I love this, but we're going to have to reshoot about half of it because it's so poorly done. But I love it. Let's reshoot it. So that got me in the union because they had to reshoot. They had to put me in the union. And it's always a catch-22. How do you get in the union? You have to have an agent to get a job, a union job. You have to have a union job to get an agent. You have to, and just everything's a catch-22, Hollywood. But this overcame it. I shot the movie. They had to reshoot half of it. So they had to put me in the union. Champlin wrote this article, which got all the agents in LA excited about whoever this kid was that he was writing about. So I started getting all these phone calls from agents. And literally, I went from being a complete unknown and unwanted actor and just one of thousands of guys in Hollywood to suddenly I was starring in a feature film for Universal, and I was only had a new agent, big shot agent, who was putting me up only for starring roles in films and television series, like overnight. So I became this overnight kind of success. I still had $50 in the bank and a bad car, but I was going in on the right kind of roles now, big shot roles. And I had been studying for 5 years, so I kind of knew what I was doing and wasn't too intimidated by all this new status. And then I started working a lot. I mean, just immediately started working a lot. And I've, knock wood again, never stopped.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love
that.
The
movie opened in Westwood for like 2 weeks. I don't think it made any money at all. Opened and closed in Westwood in 2 weeks. Disappeared. No one's ever seen it. But it opened the door for me. Did what more than I ever imagined it would. So that's my story.
On IMDb, there's a cool poster for it. There's Marla Pennington is listed.
Marla, yeah.
And she's been on the show. She from Soap and Small Wonder. But here's the thing. So directed and written by Craig Mitchell and Don I'm going to say wrong. Coscarelli, thank you. Don went on to write the Phantasm movies.
Yeah, Phantasm.
And get this. See this right here where my pen is right there? Can't really make it out. But Don also wrote Beastmaster 1 and 2, and that is a Mark Singer, Tanya Roberts signed 8x10 from Beastmaster.
Oh, okay, cool.
The writer of your first movie.
Yeah. Well, actually, he was the director too. I mean, he wrote and directed it with Craig Mitchell.
All right, so that's awesome. And then, so is the next big break Logan's Run? The movie comes out, and then they adapt it to a television.
I did another movie, low budget movie at USC called Fraternity Row with Scott Newman, Paul's son, who died a couple years later of drug overdose. Nancy Morgan, who married John Ritter, and Peter Fox. We had some other good people in it, but it was a thesis. A guy was making a thesis at USC in the film school. He got all of these people to offer their services for free. I shot that for a month and a half on Fraternity Row. That sold to Paramount and was released in a double bill back when they had double bills. It was 1976 or maybe early 77. It was a double bill with Saturday Night Fever. So if you wanted to see John Travolta, you had to sit through me.
That's fair. I think that's fair. That seems like a reasonable request. The
and that was also, I mean, it was another film that I'd starred in. Neither one of them were hits, but they were respected, respectable movies, and my performance was good in both of them. So I got more work out of it. So I did a couple of guest shots. I did MASH, did an episode of MASH, which was fantastic.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because you were on MASH, but the BJ Honeycutt years, right? You would not the Trapper John, right? He was gone already. Wayne Rogers.
No,
Yes.
no, Wayne
Right?
was still in it. Wayne
Okay.
Rogers was still in it when I did that. Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. I mean, I ended up knowing them all so well because it was a 20th Century Fox show, and then Trapper John, a spinoff of MASH, 2 years later became a big hit and we were shooting 200 yards away from MASH, from their soundstage at Paramount. So at 20th Century Fox. So I became very close with all of them, and still am with a few of them. That was a really great experience for me. It was a show called The Nurses. That was the name of the episode. Linda Kelsey played my wife, who I had never consummated the marriage with. And so I was called to the front right after the wedding ceremony. So she's a nurse, and I come back to the MASH unit on my first 24 or 48-hour leave. We have to figure out, where can we consummate this marriage? So they throw Hot Lips out of her tent and give it to us. And of course, Hot Lips is angry and mortified. And I remember it was Loretta, a wonderful lady. Loretta was so excited because it was the first time. She said, "This is the first time I'm a sympathetic character." And I went, "Oh, okay, all right." And she got to a scene where she could actually cry. And she'd been dying to cry. To play a sympathetic character who could, just one episode was all she was begging for. And this was the one, and it meant the world to her. She was great in it. But Linda Kelsey and I had the most fun, and I loved being a part of that. And of course, I had been in the Army. I was a helicopter medic, and I had been in a MASH unit watching a thrown up screen in the MASH unit when I watched the movie MASH when it came out in 1970. I was in a MASH unit. The MASH thing kept happening to me over the years, and I didn't realize when I was in the Army that I was researching a role for Trapper John MD or for the episode of MASH. All of that came in retrospect. I went, oh, wow. I was like researching these parts and didn't even know it.
So maybe you just manifested it in the universe through your experiences.
I don't know.
Who knows? Who knows? So you mentioned a couple of times you were a medic. Did you have medical background, or did they teach you certain things you just needed to know?
No, I just went to I would have been drafted and sent infantry, I'm sure, to Nam. Everybody was being sent infantry. That 1969, that was the year that we were losing 30 or 40,000 infantrymen, and they needed to be replaced. And I wasn't afraid of being in combat as much as killing anyone. I didn't want to kill anyone. I didn't believe in the war, of course, and very few people in my age bracket did at the time. But I just didn't. I was more afraid of living with having killed someone than with dying. But also, when you're 18, you feel pretty immortal. You never imagine yourself dying anyway. So I just didn't want to kill anyone and have to live with that, at least not for a cause that I felt was inappropriate. So that's why I became a medic. And I studied. I went to Fort Sam Houston, trained as a medic for several months, and then filed as a conscientious objector once I was in the Army, because I realized that I was part of the weapon, whether I was a medic or not. And the whole thing was so distasteful to me that I loved flying around in helicopters and keeping people alive, but I didn't like being a part of a military weapon. And I wanted legitimate out as a conscientious objector, but I had no religion, so they ignored that. So for the next 3 years, they sent me to Germany because they couldn't send me to a combat zone until my litigation as a conscientious objector, approved or disapproved, was finished. So they sent me to Germany to get me away from the country. Newspapers were starting to hear about my case, and 2 years and 7 months in Germany, there were a lot of ups and downs, and there was moments of hopelessness and some fun times too. But I eventually won and got out as a CO after almost 3 years, 2 years and 11 months of service. Honorable discharge. Did my job. I was a good medic. I just never ended up in Vietnam, which I'm grateful for. And I saved a lot of people or helped keep people alive in Germany, flying around, picking up soldiers and dependents from car crashes and skiing accidents. And I even delivered a baby on the helicopter once. I mean, there's just all kinds of things, you know. Wow. So I learned a little bit about medicine and stood up for my own personal beliefs at the same time. And I don't think I developed any kind of a bedside manner that ever helped me in Trapper John, but I did get comfortable with medical stuff. And I don't have a problem with blood or any of that. That helped as well, you know, that I really was, I'm more excited. I mean, like I had wrist surgery, oh God, from a boxing incident once. And they actually did what they call a beer block, where they cut off the blood to your arm, but you're awake. They don't put you out. And then literally you're holding your arm here and they're cutting open the wrist and taking chisels and chiseling out bone. And I was right here watching the whole thing, and I was digging it. I mean, I dug it so much. You know, it was numb, but that was my hand and my wrist, and it didn't bother me to watch it. My kids are not at all like that. None of my kids. I have 4 kids. None of them. They'll pass out if they see a needle.
I think a lot of people are not like that.
Yeah, a lot of people are not like that.
So get out of the honorable discharge, end up in the MASH unit on TV.
Yeah.
And how similar were they? Did MASH get it kind of close?
Oh, you know, the MASH unit on TV was stylized, of course, and the movie was a little more realistic. Great movie. The series was very different from the movie. Similar concept, but stylistically it was completely different from the movie. And not nearly as outrageous as the movie. The movie was much closer to what I was experiencing in the Army. But MASH was such a magnificent show in so many ways, you know, that I was so thrilled when I got that. I remember Mark Harmon and I were both in on the final audition for that part, and I got it. And then Mark got they loved Mark too. He got the next one. And then he won the Emmy for guest appearance for the one he did. And I didn't get nominated. So I always went, oh, maybe he should have gotten the one I got, and I should have gotten the next one. But again, you know.
You never know. You never know.
You never know.
All right. So MASH was awesome. And then Fraternity Row.
Yeah.
Can't hit everything just because we can spend 26 hours on Centennial.
Yeah. And I've done over 50 television movies.
Yeah.
Probably 25 of them were for Lifetime in the 90s, you know, where Women in Jeopardy movies, you know, where I would play the good guy who turned into the date from hell, or play a bad guy who had a charming side or something, you know, some combination, a gray area, you know, of charming but deadly. And those were really fun too.
Sounds amazing. Okay. So Logan's Run, the movie comes out, and then they create a series, and you are
you know, and again, it's sort of like with MASH, you know. I remember the Cinerama Dome was a relatively new theater back then, the one on Sunset Boulevard, big beautiful Cinerama Dome theater. And I went to the Cinerama Dome. I didn't have any money really. I went to the Cinerama Dome, sat in there and watched Logan's Run, the movie, watched Michael York, and I just went, whoa, this is a great film, you know. And I was 26. And the movie, of course, you get to 30 and you get renewed, which is actually killed off. And so for me, it is like, I was going, this is really the time of life. And between now and 30, this is when all my living should be done. And then, of course, 6 months later, the movie is a big hit. And 6 months later, my agent says, I'm gonna send over a script for a TV series version of Logan's Run. I went, what? Really? Couldn't believe it. And there was like 4 of us that ended up in doing that screen test I was describing to you earlier, with the full crew and wardrobe, and that other actors that were up for the other parts were there as well. And we would do combinations and film it all with real film. I remember who the other guys were. I liked the blinders on, and I just refused to think about that. But anyway, I ended up, and I had a beard. I had a beard at the time because I had just shot The Gathering, I think it was, a Christmas movie where I had to have a beard, that with Ed Asner and Maureen Stapleton and Stephanie Zimbalist. So I had a beard. Logan wasn't supposed to have a beard, but they cast me anyway. And then I shaved the beard, shot the pilot, and then we got like almost a full season out of it. But Star Wars came out at the same time, and Star Wars reinvented everything about special effects. And suddenly these expensive special effects we were doing on Logan's Run looked really poverty stricken compared to Star Wars. And I think the network just said, and we were the most expensive show on TV. And the network it was CBS. They just said, we can't compete with Star Wars. Let's just cancel it. So they did. And it was too bad because we had some of the great science fiction writers of all time, Dorothy Fontana, Harlan Ellison, all these great authors that came in to do scripts for us. And I was a science fiction fanatic anyway. So for me, it was really fun, really, really fun. And Heather Menzies at the time, that was probably the best thing that came from all that. Was Heather became my very best friend in life. We stayed best friends until 5 years ago. She died of a brain tumor, but she ended up marrying Bob Urich, and she and I stayed very close her whole life, and I miss her.
Yeah, she was Sound of Music, and I was trolling some clips, and there was a clip where it was her, you, and Angela Cartwright. So we had two Von Trumps.
who was of course one of Heather's best friends, right?
Yeah.
From Sound of Music.
That's really cool. Well, when I was doing some research on Logan's Run, which I thought this was kind of funny, is that part of the ratings issue was competition from the Wonderful World of Disney and Chips. Yeah. Which that's a spoiler for Randy Oakes eventually becoming your wife. But the but I thought that was just funny. Funny random thing. Anyway, okay, so but you go right from Logan's Run into Trapper John, right? Trapper John MD.
No,
well, I mean it's like a year later, maybe.
From Logan's Run, I went into I did a couple of things, and I went to I did a musical called Festival with Stokes Mitchell, who ended up in Trapper John with me, and Stephanie Zimbalist. And then I also did Centennial, the miniseries, 25-hour miniseries, where Stephanie and I played husband and wife, Mennonite husband and wife, and Conestoga wagons coming out to found the town of Centennial. She was magnificent in that. And it was that was really the turning point in my career. I was the central role in a series that went 25 hours. I aged from 22 to 78, and I was working with best actors in the world. I mean, hundreds of actors were in that show. And I only did like 12 or 13 hours of it, up to 25. But they were like from hour 3 to hour 15. It was the best role I've ever had. And I think it was the best Americana ever done for television. It was a James Michener novel, Centennial, that turned into a huge, yes, all Michener novels are this thick. And it was turned into this huge miniseries. And, I worked with the greatest actors on the planet. And just by keeping that company, it elevated me in the eyes of the industry, and maybe in the audience too, I don't know. But the industry took me a whole lot more seriously because of that. And because I was having to stretch so much, to play into middle age and into old age. That really, I think, cemented my career. That finally put my career in something in overdrive, so that it wasn't, because so many people can come and go very fast. They have one or two little successes, and then the opportunities stop. That was the job that I think cemented me in the industry, and I've been proud to have it on my resume ever since because of that.
That's amazing. Is it still considered the longest miniseries ever?
Yeah, 25 hours.
$25 million budget.
We have streaming shows now that go 10 episodes, 12 episodes, but they're not movies, as Centennial was movie quality every night for 25 hours. I think the first one was 3 hours long and all the rest were 2 hours. And huge budget and big money spent. NBC, it was back then with 3 networks. They put all their eggs in that basket.
It seems that everything you did helped propel you to the next level. That seems
not everything. There's some,
but I mean the thing. No, I mean the things we've been talking about, like some of those key things. Like yeah.
But I had some thuds in there as well. But survivable failures.
Everyone's got a thud.
Hopefully they're survivable.
The next big series that you did after Logan Run and Centennial is Trapper John MD, right?
Yeah.
Dr.
Gonzo.
George Alonzo Gonzo Gates.
That's right.
There you go. So I know we talked about MASH, but like the interesting thing that I learned while doing a little research on the show was that it is a spinoff of MASH, but legally it's a spinoff of the movie, not the TV show.
Even I did not know that.
There was a lawsuit, and the court ruled it was not a spinoff of the television show MASH because they didn't want to pay the people for the TV show.
Right.
But
that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, they didn't want to pay for the rights to the MASH series producers. Yeah, okay.
Some weird inconsistencies in the research, because one, it was purposely done, and it takes place 28 years after, so he's an older version of Trapper John. But in the very first episode, which is the only real reference where they kind of tie it together, the photos that they show are from the TV show.
Right. Yeah, that's why this comes as a surprise to me. I never knew that legally it wasn't connected to the series.
So I watched the opening, the pilot, where you just show up and just start doing tracheotomies and stuff.
Yeah. And then take a shower.
Yeah, take a shower.
Yeah. And they wanted to get my shirt off as soon as possible. Back when it was a positive thing to have my shirt off.
Well, you did a whole huge thing with for ladies only with your shirt off. So you capitalized well on that. So
yeah, figured, strike while the iron's hot, because I didn't intend to do sit-ups for the rest of my life.
Trapper John MD, amazing experience.
Oh yeah. Oh God, it was amazing. It was wonderful. And it allowed me, because the show became a hit, it allowed me to take control of my own career and to create my own production company and buy a theater and start producing movies for myself and for others, to start creating things for my hiatus between seasons, and how to, roles that I thought would enhance the variety of on my resume, and that I could have fun playing things I hadn't already played. I always was bad at waiting by a telephone for a phone call from an agent or a producer or whomever. And I don't like waiting around. That allowed me to be able to take control, and produced about 25 movies, and I produced 60 plays. I was in probably 5 or more of those movies, and probably 10 or more of those plays. But I just loved producing and developing stories and buying books and developing scripts. And, I just feel like it's part of the creative process, and to dictate the twists and turns of your own career. And that's what Trapper John allowed me. And it was fun to shoot. I mean, we had long days, Purnell, of course, the show was named Trapper John. That's Purnell Roberts. And Purnell would do we had 55-page scripts every week. We'd shoot 7 days. And Purnell would be in about 10 pages, and I would be in 60, because I was the young hunky guy that, always was chasing the girls and drinking on the rooftop of the Titanic, my motorhome out in the parking lot of the hospital, and coming in unshaven and being brilliant in the operating room. And, I was basically, to Purnell, I was who Trapper John had been in the Army. I was the young buck, upstart, brilliant, who ignored every rule. And so they wrote to me. I mean, it was exhausting, but it was fun. One of the things I loved about Trapper John was the producers were old school, Don Brinkley, Frank Lixman, and they really appreciated vaudeville actors and old movie stars. And we had guest stars on that show I couldn't believe. I'm a big Hollywood buff, I love Hollywood history, and I would sit and milk them between shots for every story they could tell me. It was so much fun. That was the best thing. Listening to Red Buttons or Sylvia Sidney or all these different, Olivia de Havilland. I mean, people that I'm now in the business as long as they were then. And it was just so fun to listen to their stories.
I love that. Anytime I've talked to when I talked to folks that were, the Love Boat, on the Love Boat,
yeah.
Sorry, they'll say the
same thing.
Same thing. It was like, because it was great to bring in those types of actors, because they knew what the hell they were doing. They were really good.
They knew what the hell they were doing, but also the audiences all knew that, most of the audiences knew them. They just hadn't seen them much lately. So they were always glad to have them, to see them on their screen. And yeah, they were usually really good in whatever roles they were given, you know, even on Love Boat. We used to call it Lust Boat. Brian and Tim Busfield and we would go over to the Love Boat set, which was also on 20th Century Fox. We had MASH, Love Boat, Charlie's Angels, Trapper John MD. We would go visit. And we'd go visit. We'd know which day of the week they were shooting their pool scenes, because that's when they needed 50 bikinied extras. And so we would, on our lunch, we'd take an early lunch break, head over to the soundstage for Lust Boat and ogle all the extras. We were bad boys, but it was sure fun.
That's so funny. How did you end up not being on the Love Boat?
I don't know how I avoided that. I mean, I was working. I was doing my own show through all of that time. Randy did some Love Boats. My wife did some Love Boats. She did Fantasy Island. She did so many of these things. And then she did Circus of the Stars and flew trapeze on that. And, you know, she did Chips for 6 years, I think it was. And I met her on the Battle of the Network Stars in 1980.
I read that.
I was there for Trapper John. She was there for Chips. And I picked her to sit over this water tank, and I'd throw at this target and knock her in. God, she looked good wet. She was wearing spandex, and the water was cold. So, but then she picked me and put me up there and knocked me in 3 times. And I had carried her out after I'd knocked her in and carried her back and put her on her bench. Didn't know her, had never met her. After she knocked me in, she comes up and picks me up and carries me over and puts me on my bench. And a year later, we were married. You explain it. It's the least likely, it's the most frivolous way. And it's Hollywood, you know, so it's the most frivolous way we could have met. And yet somehow we've been married for 44 years.
That's so funny. Just because you both randomly happen to be on an episode of Battle of the Network
Battle
Stars.
of the Network Stars, yeah.
They don't have anything like that anymore. Because I remember like watching those growing up. Those were the greatest things for, you know, just seeing everybody compete against each other.
That was really the first reality, quote, reality show. You know, now, you know, there's 20 of them on there, you know, that of celebrities or just regular people competing, you know, Survivor kind of style things. That was the first time anybody had ever tried anything like that. And have a bunch of 3 teams of celebrities competing against each other in various events. I did 3 of them, I think, but that was the first one where I met my wife.
That's wild.
Yeah.
How soon did you guys date right after? Like, did you?
You know, she was there with her fiance and I was there with my girlfriend. So we didn't see, and my girlfriend broke up with me about 2 weeks later, coincidentally. And Randy broke up with her fiance, coincidentally. And about a month after the battle, I was at a charity softball game for benefit, I think a children's charity. And I was sitting in the dugout kind of bummed because my girlfriend had dumped me. And I hear this clop, 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 clop coming down the dugout. This is out in North Hollywood High School. Coming down the dugout, and I'm not even looking. I'm just sort of staring at the ground. It's before the game starts. They're out there warming up and stuff, and I'm just sort of sitting there bummed. And I hear clop, 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 clump. Somebody sits down next to me, and I hear this voice, "Hi, 2 drinks and dinner, and I'm yours." And I turned and looked, and it was Randy from the Battle of the Network Stars. And I heard later that she had handed her car keys to her manager who had come there with her and said, "Take my car home. I'm going home with him." So apparently I was an easy mark, but she knew that we'd had chemistry. We'd had some magic happen at the battle. So she knew what she wanted and we went out. That was that. A year later, we got married.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yes. Bonnie Clark, Officer Bonnie Clark on
Officer
Chips.
Bonnie. That's right.
What's Randy up to these days? Is she acting still or?
No, shit. When we had our first kid, she went, "Oh, this is what fulfillment feels like. I've never felt this kind of fulfillment before." And she didn't much like acting. She'd been a very successful model in New York for years before she came to Hollywood. And she enjoyed that, but that was no longer happening. And the camera loved her. She was perky and attractive, but she didn't care about acting. She never studied it really. She wasn't fulfilled by it in any way. So she just went, "I'll make a deal. You do what you love and I'll raise our family. We'll have more kids." and I'll make sure that you're always felt here. You're present even when you're not, and you don't have to feel guilty that way about being gone too much. And we shook on it, literally shook on it, and that's the way it worked out. I have 4 really great kids. I don't think any of them felt deprived by me being gone so much, and I was gone probably half the time while they were growing up, but then I'd have time off, so I was fully there for the other half of the time. And I'd kind of grown up that way. My dad being a boat captain, there were times when he'd go off on a voyage, and I'd get him full time for a couple of weeks, and then not at all for a couple of weeks. It worked for me growing up, and it seemed to work for my kids. I wasn't a boat captain, but I was off on a voyage for long periods of time.
Any of your kids get the acting bug or anything like that?
Yeah, my daughter Lily and I have done 3 things together, 3 movies together. She's a writer. That's really her forte, I think. She's got 2 movies in development right now and a TV series.
Oh, wow.
That she's written, and she'll be acting in the series as well. She's a wonderful writer. And my youngest daughter, Kate, has been a very successful model for 17 years. You would recognize her, Kate Harrison. You can Google her, and she's Kate Harrison model, I think, and on Google, and you'll see a million pictures of her. She's been everywhere. Everything from a Roxy girl to the cover of Vogue and bridal magazines and everything. She's still working. She's still modeling. She lives in New York.
Very cool.
My oldest daughter is a bookkeeper. She's about 40 years old now. She's a virtual bookkeeper and does very well. And I have 2 granddaughters by her. She's up in Portland, Oregon.
That's amazing. I love it. Love it. Let's see. I know I've kept you for a long time, so I'll just throw out a few things real quick. Falcon Crest. Love Falcon Crest. The Family Man.
I killed off Falcon Crest. That was 1989, and it was their final season. And they asked me to come in and play Michael Sharp, who was just terribly evil guy. That was really the first really evil part that I played. But he had his charms, and I had more fun playing that. That was one of the most fun characters ever. And that I think is why that was 1989. And then after that, everybody was making offers to me to go play bad guys, good bad guys, bad good guys.
But it's probably more fun to play bad than good, right?
Not necessarily. Can be. Yeah, it can be, because part of it is, of course, that when you're playing a good guy, everybody has an opinion about what a good guy is. But when you're playing a bad guy, who's going to say, no, bad guys don't act like that. No, bad guys. Pretty much anything they do, you go, ooh, that's bad. So it's you have more freedom. No, the directors, producers, writers, they say, show me what you got. Show me what you think bad is, and then usually they're thrilled. Amazing. And I really love playing shades of gray. I have more fun playing as an actor. Justifying behaviors is a huge part of preparation. How do you justify? The guy's a murderer, or you're playing a Hitlerian character or something. I mean, it's like, how do you justify what he's doing? Because nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to be a bad guy today. Or at least I don't. And maybe psychopaths do, but I don't think most people wake up going, yeah, I'm going to be a bad guy. I think they somehow justify even the terrible things they do. So for me as an actor, it's really fun to find those justifications and play guys who can, like the Tony Soprano character, who can be murderous at one moment and this loving father at the other moment. That's where the fun lies as an actor.
Sounds like it'd be the most fun to be able to play those shades of gray.
Yeah.
I know you've done I'm going to say 400 signed, sealed, and delivered movies. A lot. I'm kidding. But we've done 13 signed, sealed, delivered movies. And that may be our last one. We never know. The audience keeps asking for more, so who knows? We might do more after that. That's been a really fun time. Martha Williamson is the writer, creator, showrunner. I've known Martha forever. I've worked with her on Touched by an Angel many times, directed Touched by an Angels. And Martha, actually, I met her on a sitcom I did back in the late 80s, a half-hour sitcom called The Family Man. And she was on the writing staff. And then she just took off running shows and is a brilliant writer. It must be great to have like a kind of a franchise that you're part of.
It is, yeah. And I was doing Chesapeake Shores with Treat Williams, also for Hallmark, for 6 seasons. While I was doing signed, sealed, delivered movies for Hallmark, maybe 1 or 2 a year, for 5 or 6 years. And now, Hallmark's been very good to me. So I don't know. Maybe I'll do more. Never know.
Never know. Why not?
I
Why
don't have
not?
anything lined up right now. I actually had back surgery about 3 months ago that I'd been putting off forever because I was doing General Hospital. The first job offered to me after COVID was General Hospital, because they're the first a soap opera most easily is able to organize a formula where you can shoot safely and masked and heap separation and do all that. So that was the first offer that came in, and I had sworn I would never do a soap. Terrified me, doing 30 pages of dialogue every day. But I heard myself say, yes, tell him I'll do it. Yeah, I got to get back to work. Then the terror hit me after I hung up. It's like, oh my God, what have I done? But I got down there. I did. It was only a 10-show arc they asked me to do, and I did the 10 shows. I survived it, and apparently I did well enough that they said, well, let's do a 3-year contract. So I did. And, I had more fun than I ever imagined I would have.
Is it easier when your character's name is the same as your name, so you don't have to?
Yeah, it was pretty. My initials, GH. I'm GH is on GH. And I was playing Gregory. They killed me off about 3 or 4 months ago with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. But it was a fun departure. I got 3.5 good years on the show. And then I got my back surgery. That was the point, was that I finally finished that. I had a window to get this thing fixed in my back, and I'm pretty much recovered now.
Just one last thing. So you mentioned the Family Man. So Al Molinaro, Al from Happy Days was on that. As a certain names just pop, and I'm like, oh, it's Al.
Yeah, he's a sweet, sweet, sweet man.
You've done so many great things, and I appreciate all these stories and the time that you've spent with me. It's been great hanging out with you. Thank you.
Same here. It's been really fun. Thank you.